Hey everybody, Pejman Gadimi here, back with another exotic car hacks video, and today we are going to talk about the GT3RS. Now, if you've been following me and I've already subscribed to this channel, you already know that I've gotten a 19 GT3RS, and we've already talked about it. We've already talked about how great of a bang for the buck it was, how great of a bargain car it is compared to the Huracan, and ultimately why Porsches depreciate less than most cars. But today what we're going to talk about is not really my specific GT3RS that is behind me, but rather we're going to be talking about how affordable is the GT3RS, which year should you be buying if you really want it to be safe on your investment. Now, one of the things we teach here at Exotic Car Hacks, by clicking the link into the description, you'll actually be taken to a free training where you'll learn all about how to buy, trade, and sell exotics for fun and in many cases for a profit. For those of you that want to drive an exotic car, this is the best most cost-effective way to avoid what I call the DRI, the depreciation, the repairs, and the insurance. And so for everybody else who just is viewing here on YouTube and want to know what is the best GT3RS to buy, we're going to talk about that specifically today. You see, for the longest time now, the GT3RS has been known as one of the least depreciating Porsches on the market, with some of the 08, earlier models being on sale literally for still $140,000, $130,000. It makes it very, very difficult to ignore the car since MSRP is right about $200K, which means that it makes it one of the least depreciating cool exotic cars on the market, and really an incredible driver's car, regardless that you like the 6-speed of the earlier models or the incredibly fast shifting PDK in the 991.2 behind me. Ultimately, there is nothing I feel that is better for the money than the GT3RS. So, can you afford the GT3RS? How affordable is it? And which models to look for? What does the depreciation curve look like? And so much more coming up right now. Now, it's kind of hot here. We're going to head inside. We're going to look at a little whiteboard, and we're going to be talking about the GT3RS. So follow me inside, and please make sure you like this video, subscribe, and just be nice so I can keep making you some really awesome new content. I've been working hard to bring you some really awesome and different content than what you've seen out there. And so follow me inside. Let's talk about the GT3RS. All right, everybody, so we are back, and now we're going to first take a look at the depreciation curve on the GT3RS. Now, typically in most exotics, you're going to see a depreciation curve that starts here and kind of goes down like we shared in some of the training, and then kind of flats out, right? And then we've said that it'll go up and down based pretty much on mileage or condition, etc. However, even though most exotics will come down in the first 3 years and then continue, the GT3RS, however, will look a little bit different. And I want you to understand this because it's important when you're valuing your cars. So with the GT3RS, instead of going down, it'll flatline right off the bat and will fall with each and every generation, giving it a much different depreciation curve before flattening out for good. So what does that mean? That means that at each point here, which is whenever a new generation is introduced, you'll see a drop in the market. But then here's the interesting part past that. You'll then see the rise back with most older Porsches based on condition and mileage. So very, very different from before, where you will see older generation cars slowly coming back to new generation settings based on miles, condition, or anything such as the old ones have 6 speeds, the new ones no longer come with 6 speeds, so there is a difference. One of the things that becomes really interesting with the GT3RS is, as a result of this really bizarre depreciation curve, you get an opportunity to drive the car for a set duration of time right here, which could be anywhere from 2 to 3 years without any depreciation at all, which is pretty powerful because most cars, as we talk about in the training, which again, click the link in the bio if you haven't yet had a chance to, but in most cars, you're going to not be able to really drive them for free like we teach for the first 3 years. But with the actual GT3RS, you could actually do this with each generation as they come out and dump them right before the change again. This is the same strategy I use now, and why I bought a 19 GT3RS right here, even though it would be a death wish for any other exotic to be bought brand new, because it will just tank to nothing. So the depreciation curve is a little bit different, which is really, really important. And something to consider about the depreciation curve, which is important, is that where does it settle? So if we take a look at the sticker of a new GT3RS, roughly on average about 220,000, we also look at an earlier model car, about 12 years old now, at 140,000, depending of course on miles, condition, and everything else. We are talking about a 12-year depreciation right here, And I want you to understand this. We're talking about 12-year depreciation of only $80,000. Now, this is huge, guys. And I want you to understand why this is so important. Because that means that in 12 years, I want you to take out a calculator now and work with me, because I want you to understand this. This is so important. So over 12 years, you have $80,000 and you're going to divide that by 12. That means each year the car has only depreciated $6,600. So that's $606,000 on average, right? Per year in depreciation. This is a big deal because you have to understand that that means that on average, I remember what we said, the depreciation does not happen all at once each and every year accordingly, but what this means to you is that each and every single year, the GT3RS is averaging a 3% loss. This is huge, guys, because this on average means that an average exotic, if spread the same way, is losing 12 to 17% a year. And this car is losing 3. So this in itself is why the GT3RS is one of the best bangs for the buck when it comes to understanding how market values work as an exotic. So if you're going to be buying one, just keep in mind that while you may experience some or little to no depreciation, and there is a reason for that, it's because of the depreciation curve we just saw. Now, in addition to that, I want to give you some tips if you're going to be buying one, because right now something has happened where the shift has just happened, that the 2019s are out and the 2016s have just taken their dip like we just saw, right? So if you're going to be buying a 2019, this is what you need to know. You have roughly an additional 1.5 years before the drop from today, right? If you're buying a 2016, you have the exact same time again. Now, here's the difference. With the 2019, you want to be buying anywhere from $20,000 to $10,000 below MSRP for it to actually make sense right now, right? If you have a 2016, on the other hand, you want to be paying anywhere from $155,000 to $170,000 for your car. Now, this is really important to understand because brand new cars will leverage MSRP a lot more than older cars. But when we're talking about older cars, here's what you want to be looking for. A car with under 4,500 miles. And you want to be putting no more than 2,500 miles a year on the car. Now, this is also very, very important because if we factor that in over 12 years, that means in 12 years you would have roughly about 30,000 miles, which would be a lot today, but certainly wouldn't be enough wouldn't be very much for a 12-year-old car. So consider that if you're looking to buying a car. Now, in terms of actual value retention or increase, you want to be looking into the 07 GT3RS, which was the 6-speed manual, because that car is now trending up. And this is really, really important to understand because the GT3RS in 07 as a 6-speed, as well as the 10 GT3RS, are both 6-speed manuals, and they are both now trending back up based on, of course, the mileage. So if you're looking for a car to hold for a long duration of time, maybe you live in California and have not yet mastered the strategy of avoiding taxes legally like we teach in the course, then you want to be looking for an older car so you don't have to get out of it anytime soon. On the other hand, if you're like me and you need the newest and greatest, then you want to be looking into 2019 at 20 to 10K below MSRP, or a 2016 below 170 but over 155. Now, some things to keep in mind about options you want to be having with the car, because this is really important to understand, because options do matter, something that a lot of people confuse when it comes to these cars. Now, when it comes to these newer cars, you definitely want the lift system. More than anything else, you want the front lift. It works very, very well. Another annoying option is the PCCB, which is the Porsche ceramic brakes. You want those. They're the yellow brakes specifically, partially because, again, they're a much more expensive feature, but also a lot of guys want them, even though they're annoying as shit because they're constantly squeaking, but you definitely want these no matter what. The other thing that's really important to have is you want the buckets. Now, some of you fat guys may not be able to fit in the buckets, but at the end of the day, you want the buckets because most people buying GT3RSs want to feel like race car drivers. In reality, from a resale standpoint, these cars typically always bring more money. And very few were actually made without the buckets, making the buckets not necessarily a rarity, but kind of a necessity, which is also very, very, very important. So this is kind of like, you have to have this, and there's no real like way around it. Obviously, there are options like the PCM, the Porsche management, and then of course you want the chrono, which is very cheap. But these are kind of the things you have to have. Now the PCM and chrono, there's very few cars made without them. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to buy a car that does not have them, but they are out there and you got to be careful not to fall victim. So make sure you pay close attention to the photos to make sure you do have a screen and you do have the chrono, which is that little clock in the middle of the car. The options you really don't need, which are, you know, really not necessary, are, again, when you have the Alcantara interior. While it's nice, it's not a necessity. You don't have to have it in order to have anything there. It's just unnecessary. And then there's a lot of options like leather options, which are not necessarily, again, important. You have options such as additional fire extinguishers, which again, not really needed. So aesthetically, if you're trying to see where this kind of is going, is that all the options you really need more than anything else are the options that are functional. The options you don't have to have are the options that are aesthetic. The only aesthetic option that does matter is what you call either the PTS or the rarity in color. So one of the things that people don't realize is that Porsches sold really well from 07 to 10, and even older Porsches sell well based on original paint and in color. Now, one of the things that's important to understand is that in the past, colors had, we didn't have as many exotics on the road, so a lot of these older exotics don't have bright colors like we have today, like the Porsche Miami Blues and the Lizard Greens. They weren't out there back then. We also had a lot less of them. So as a result of that, older cars with bright colors are doing a lot better. Newer cars are also a lot more limited in bright colors. Like there's currently under 30 Miami Blue GT3RS 0.2s on the market, like meaning not for sale, but I mean literally produced. And you can go to the registry for the GT3RS in many of the sites like Renlist and pull up the data on which were the most like rare colors. Now, rare colors do not mean they will necessarily sell faster or better. It just means that it will bring a premium should someone want that color. Like we know that yellow GT3RSs are not as popular as a chalk color GT3RS. However, we know that yellow is a rarer color than chalk. But we also know that chalk is going to bring a bigger premium. So again, colors do matter, and paint to sample, which stands for PTS, also matters a lot because those are rare one of ones or two of one of threes and so on and so forth of cars that are going to bring more money because of, again, limited options. So if you're looking for a GT3RS, hopefully you found this helpful. But again, understand that without all of the financing in place, GT3RSs are quite expensive because the majority of people don't have 250,000 or 150,000 laying around. So here's what you should know about financing your GT3RS, which is also really, really important. Now, when it comes to exotic car financing, again, if you're following my course outline, then you understand how to stretch exotic car financing as much as 84 months. And I recommend it more than anything else, partially because even some banks offer 96, like I break down in my program. But I always recommend going longer because you're going to get a shorter payment and you're going to put yourself in a better position because you're not going to keep the car as long as the full payment, paying the full interest. Now, here's what gets really, really important. And again, when you're talking about these, we're not talking about 10% rates, right? In my program, I teach you how to get 96 point at 4.99, and here you can get most of these at 3.99, which is really like very, very little money. So very, very little interest on the money. So if you're looking at a brand new car, you're going to be looking at roughly putting about 10% down, which means that with 20K down, and this is again an interesting way to look at this, with 20K down, you're looking at about a $200,000 car. Right? So, and at $200,000 over 84 months at 3.99, you're going to be looking just a little bit under 3,000, which is going to put you somewhere around like 2,700. Now, don't quote me on this exactly. You have a loan calculator. You can look that up. Now, this may seem like a lot, but again, remember, you're not spending this if you understand the way my system works. You're simply transferring it into the car. Now, this seems to still be an expensive proposition. But on the other hand, if we're looking at a 2010, or 2007 six-speed car, we could go in that car with as little as 0 down, we could be looking at a financed amount of about $150,000. And now that said, again, with 84 months, we would be looking roughly at about $1,900. And this is where it gets affordable. No money down, $1,900 a month, and you could be in a GT3RS that's never going to be worth less than what it is right now. Meaning that out of that $1,900, about $300 is going to be your interest, which means that your cost of ownership each and every month while you hold onto your car is $300. And so if the car is not going anywhere, really your better buy for a GT3RS currently is going to be as 10 GT3RS, and that is not only going to be the safest GT3RS, but really one of the ones that's going to keep appreciating, because in many times you could even have it wipe your interest, your taxes, or anything else. So hopefully this math makes sense and you understand why and how to look at the GT3RS from a dollar standpoint and how affordable it can really be. A lot of times with exotic cars, we don't pay attention to what it really means from a finance standpoint. What we understand, on the other hand, is just the baseline that it costs a lot of money to own an exotic. But as I've shared in my training, as you can click the link in the bio and go into training, you could own an exotic car for as little as $300–400 a month. Here's an example. Other places where the payment would only be no more than $500 a month and cost you less than $50 or $100 a month to drive one. So these possibilities are out there. The point is to get creative with finance, and the point is to understand this methodology so you're not overspending, you're not overpaying on taxes, you're not actually dealing with repairs, insurance, or anything else, and learn the correct strategies to get in and out of exotic cars. So how affordable is the GT3RS? Well, you decide. I'll catch you next time on another exotic car hacks video. Please make sure you subscribe, click the like button, and we'll see you next time.